a mum has revealed the horrifying moment her 12-year-old son told her he was raped by his sister's boyfriend. Living every mother's worst nightmare, Donna Jennings recounted how she found out that her innocent son had his childhood snatched away from him, and still suffers to this day. Ross, now 23, was just 12 years old when he was first sexually abused by pervert George Parker, who was jailed for 20 years for a total of 21 sex offenses, Kent Live reports. But brave Ross, who previously spoke out about the campaign of childhood abuse he suffered, still struggles to cope with his past and desperately needs therapy. Fearing her son will no longer be around by the time his name reaches the top of the waiting list, Ross' single mother, Donna, set up a GoFundMe page to raise any funds she can to treat him privately. Ross first revealed to his mum what Parker, now 26, had done to him in 2015, when she'd arrived at their Tunbridge Wells home after work. Donna said, "I knew something was wrong because he just wouldn't talk to me. I said to him, 'Are you all right?' Nothing at all. I knew he'd been depressed because he'd been to the doctors. I knew it. I sat down, talked to him and he just didn't want to talk to me and, again, I knew something was wrong. I cuddled him and said, 'It's all right, tell Mum what's the matter.' In the end he said, 'You can't help me.' So I just said, 'I can help you, I'm Mum, I can help you with anything.' He said, 'You can't help me.' So I said, 'What have you done?' And he was still crying at that point and I said to him, 'Come on, you've got to tell me now.' He said, 'You can't help me, you can't.' I thought, have you murdered somebody? Have you done something really serious? That's the only thing you couldn't help." Then he turned round and said, "It's George." He said, "He's done something to me." So, I cuddled him because he's in a state at that point and I said, you can tell me. And he actually came out and told me that George had raped him. She continued, "I just burst into tears and cuddled him. I didn't know what to think at that point. I just hugged him and held onto him, but he left that chair, ran upstairs and barricaded himself into his room. At that point I was scared because I didn't know what he was doing behind the door. I sat on the floor and I just spoke to him through the door. I never heard any more from him on that part then. I just had to ring his dad and get his dad down from Bedfordshire because I needed him to know what had happened. I was very upset, obviously," she added. "I couldn't believe what I was hearing, that somebody that I trusted had done this to a child at that time. I just thought, why didn't I see it? They're very cunning, aren't they? They hide things well. I just couldn't believe how I, as a mum, could have missed it. I wasn't a good mum. How could I have missed such a big thing in his life?" I blamed myself, like Ross' sister did at that point, thinking we'd allowed Parker in the house. I could have just gone up to his house and I won't tell you what I'd have liked to have done to him at that point, but I knew that wasn't the answer. We had to deal with Ross. Parker had to wait then. He would be dealt with when he had to be. Ross was my main concern at that point, getting some sort of help. Parker's crimes were reported to the police shortly thereafter in what would start an agonizingly protracted investigation. In August 2016, Ross was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. His mental health had been rapidly deteriorating, culminating in him deliberately crashing his car and taking razor blades to his body and face. From that period of despair sprung hope as Ross undertook psychological therapy called EMDR, which tries to help the brain reprocess traumatic memories. Donna explained, "He was a different person. I sort of got my son back. He was happier. He was a lot happier." The problem was the therapy goes quite deep, so it does bring it out and you see him still go down, but as they started to bury it, because it moves the trauma into a better place, he wasn't having those nightmares. He wasn't self-harming. He came off his tablets. I got my Ross back. But this treatment was limited to only 6 sessions, reportedly so that it would not hinder Ross' ability to accurately recount his evidence at trial. Now, facing a 1-year wait for the psychological therapy he so desperately needs, Ross has resorted back to self-harming and is plagued by suicidal thoughts. It took the intervention of Tunbridge Wells MP Greg Clark to get Ross back under the care of mental health team, Highlands House, this January. However, Ross has recently learned he will likely have to wait up to 1 year for the therapy. Other mental health help groups like Think Action and Rubicon have also reportedly told him that they cannot cater for such a deep-rooted trauma. He said, "My fears are that Ross will take his own life. He's not getting the help that he needs now. He cannot wait for a year. I can't be with him 24/7. I can't watch him at night. I fear he could go that one extra step and take his life because he feels that no one is helping him. He just feels failed. I feel that the system has failed him." When he last felt suicidal in 2016, Ross went to hospital and was initially taken to the Priory in Woking on the NHS. This was due to a lack of beds at Priority House in Maidstone, and he was transferred after a week once space was found. "I fear for his life. He's self-harming again." "It's hard," Donna said. "He's in a bad way at the moment. He needs the therapy to get that out of his head. Going to a mental hospital is not what he needs, it's the therapy that he needs. It's not being locked up somewhere," she continued. "So, the GoFundMe was my idea because when he had to stay in the Priory that was the best time for him. But, it's such a lot of money. We can't afford that. We can't afford that," she added. "I'm really scared. I'm scared that this time he will end it."